Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your hosts, Adam Emmert.
If Shaq Griffin is listening right now, you should be pissed. You got snubbed. This is a bunch of crap.
And Brandan Schultz.
My favorite part of it was that he had to let us know that he was probably more high than anything.
Go Hawks!
This is episode 188 of the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz of the Military Seahawkers. And joining me live and in studio, my good buddy Adam Emmert.
I didn't know if I was ever going to join you again, Brandan. After talking to you earlier this week, I thought you were legitimately going to die. I thought you'd be dead and the podcast would be over. So thank you for not dying and pulling through.
Yeah, it was a rough week.
Yes.
But, there's this bad head cold going around, and I survived. I made it through.
I'm very excited you made it through. I was worried for your health and safety. So anybody who's mad that this has been late, just understand that,
there's reasons.
Yeah. Just be happy Brandon's not dead.
The interesting thing is it almost seems every year at the end of the season.
This is where it gets you?
I refused to get sick during the Seahawks season, seriously sick,
right?
To where I couldn't do a show,
right?
And then it waits till the off season for me, and then it hits me.
Your strategic sickness works for me. That's fine.
Because now we can put it off a couple days and it's okay.
And it's okay. Yeah, it's not a big deal because there's not a game on Sunday.
There's not anything happening. There's not there's tons of changes going on with the team. There's nothing going on to talk about.
I guess there was a few things that happened. I don't know about you, Brandan, but after everything that happened this last week, I'm 2/3 happy.
2/3 happy?
2/3 happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out of 3 coaching changes, you're 2/3.
I'm 2/3 happy. Yeah.
That's it's not a great average if you're test taking for, that's like a 67%.
Hey, D's get degrees, dude. Yeah.
But I guess if you throw, just in terms of overall personnel throughout an organization, you have to include Pete Carroll as a win and John Schneider not going to the Packers as a win, too. So Carroll and Schneider could have both been gone had Carroll retired.
So I'm 4/5 happy?
So you're actually 4/5 happy.
Wow, that's almost glass completely full. I don't think I can handle that.
But
yeah, a lot that went on this week. I know you've been anxious to talk about it. You've been texting me a lot with the rumors and all that. You're very excited. So we should definitely break down the new coaching hires and what this might mean for the team.
Well, and this brings up an interesting point of contention between the two of us this last week.
It's not contention.
It's a little bit of contention because your characterization of rumors and mine are that they're early reports. These are two very different things to me.
Yeah.
So when I see the early reports that Marty's kid, Brian Schottenheimer, is
all right. Well, I have an early report that your wife is having an affair. Okay, does that not sound like
that's a rumor?
That sounds like a rumor. Okay,
you have no information that you're going off of.
You're sure about that?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I figured you'd be pretty sure. But yeah, see, that's all I'm getting at.
Okay,
yeah, that's all rumors.
It's okay. Not all rumors, but
okay.
When a reporter source is Ken Norton Jr.'s wife that he's coming back to Seattle, I feel like that's a pretty good source. That's more than a rumor.
I don't know. She's a liar.
Can't trust her.
Can't trust her. Yeah, I mean that might be that's an excellent point to all that. I hadn't seen Ken Norton's wife come out and say that. I had just seen people twittering, and that tends to just make me not pay attention.
Your level of pay attentionism in the off season is.
It's lowish. And then you combine that with my pay attentionism that I give to Twitter, which is also lowish, might be a little high.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of this was coming out on Twitter, but turned out your rumors were true.
Yeah. So we have 3 new coaching changes. And as Adam pointed out, I think he's happy of 2 out of the 3. Mm-hmm. Brian Schottenheimer in as offensive coordinator, Mike Solari in as the offensive line coach for the departed Tom Cable, and you have Ken Norton Jr. in to coach the defense with Kris Richard leaving. And
is he leaving? He's still there? We don't know what's going on with Kris Richard. It's almost like they're just you're not the defensive coordinator anymore. You can stay if you want, but leave if you want.
Well, the Seahawks did post his outgoing thank you to fans and the organization.
Really? Oh, okay. I hadn't seen that yet. All right.
So we've had that for all the 3 coaches that had lost their positions. There were some rumors that Kris Richard could come back and coach the defensive backs, and maybe that's still an option.
Yeah.
But I would think that he would want to go find a defensive coordinator job somewhere.
Yeah, if he can. But usually when you lose a defensive coordinator job, you take a step back, you become a position coach.
Sure.
I still find it interesting that they fired Kris Richard. I don't think that he did a poor job. So that's something that is, I'm not sure what to make of.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wasn't mad about his performance, but maybe there was some stuff internally that we don't know about.
Well, we'll get into that more. I want to talk about these coaching changes as a whole. Just how drastic are they? Because you have a lot of people in the media characterizing as, oh, this is drastic change for the Seahawks. And when you change out that many coaches, I can understand it. But I do want to get into the discussion. We had the first arrest of the offseason. We can talk about that. And joining us on the show this week, Keith Myers of 12th Man Rising and co-host of the Hawks Playbook podcast. He's going to talk a little bit about Tom Cable being let go and bringing on Mike Solari.
And I'm sure that made him very pleased.
Keith has been very outspoken about his interest in moving on from Tom Cable.
Interest, that's a good word. Yeah.
He's been very interested in seeing that happen.
Yes.
He's been a proponent.
Yes. Congratulations to him. Yes.
So he's feeling pretty good, and we'll chat with him a little bit later. So let's start it off with the coaching changes just as a whole.
Okay.
I do want to get into your individual thoughts on these coaches, but every one of these hires, when I hear about people saying, oh, this is major change in the coaching staff, I question that, because when I look at these coaches, they're almost the exact same coach, but a little bit different. And I say that because Schottenheimer, he's very conservative in his play calling. I think from what we heard, one of the interesting interviews from this past week was Rex Ryan talking about Brian Schottenheimer's time with him with the Jets.
You'll have to elaborate on that, because I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the 2 main takeaways were that he's very loyal, and some fans may have interpreted it as almost being loyal to a fault, because as the story goes about Schottenheimer, Rex Ryan said, this was the story that he shared. He said, one day we were playing the Detroit Lions, and I told these guys, look, we're going to run the ball 40 times tomorrow, because I thought in my heart that was the best way to beat the team. We're just going to pound them. So sure enough, we're doing it. They got Ndamukong Suh, they got all these other guys, and we're running the ball. Well, all of a sudden they're putting 8, 9 guys in the box, and we can't run it. Yet Brian is so loyal to the head coach that, by God, we're getting beat by 20-0, and we keep running it. I finally went over and I said, guys, I'm looking at Shotty. I said, Shotty, we're down 20. And he said, yeah, Rex, but we've got to get those 40 carries. I go, all right, forget it. I call the offense over, and Brian said, I think we can throw it on him. And I said, well, you guys want to win the game? I know I told you we were going to run it 40 times. Would you rather win the game or run it 40 times? I said, all right, let's light him up. And that's exactly what Brian did. He flipped the switch. We went no huddle, ended up forcing it into overtime and winning.
Interesting. So we'll come back more to that with Schottenheimer, because you had the overall approach to this that you kind of were looking at. So,
but that sounds very much something that sounds very Bevellish, right? When with the slow starts with the offense, that fits right in.
Sure does.
Okay. Second guy, Mike Solari, zone blocking.
Yeah,
and we're not moving. Although he's taught different concepts within the zone blocking scheme. He's taught man scheme. So I think he's a well-rounded coach in terms of the O-line. I think zone blocking is what Carroll wants to do. So I don't see much changing there. I think he's the biggest upgrade of the 3. And when I look at Ken Norton Jr., here's a guy who he could have been the defensive coordinator 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things I don't quite understand now, I was thinking that he left because he didn't get the defensive coordinator job over Kris Richard. That just seemed like the logical, well, if he didn't get it, I'm going to go, do this somewhere else. But clearly he doesn't have hard enough feelings about getting passed over that he could now come back. So I don't know. Maybe he just wanted the job in Oakland and to coach somewhere else.
Yeah, no, he just took the opportunity. So basically he didn't get the job. Kris Richard did, and Oakland offered him the job. So he took it. Like, and he's not mad about it. He's just like, okay, I took my opportunity there and I got the opportunity to be back here. Great.
Or did he take the Oakland job before he had the opportunity to be considered for the Seahawks job?
Hard telling, not knowing. I can't remember the time frame on that. So, yeah.
But again, not a big change as a guy who was coaching this defense before and up for defensive coordinator. So did we really need a big makeover in terms of the coaching staff? This team was 9-7.
Mm-hmm.
And
trending which way, though?
Trending down.
Right.
Injuries were a big part of it, but
sure.
Right, I don't
for whatever
see this
reason.
as a drastic change now. I see this as tweaks.
It's more than tweaks. It's definitely more than tweaks, but it's no coincidence that a lot of these guys hold a lot of the same principles that the guys that held the job before them did, because they got to work under Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll has a way he wants to play ball. And so they're going to have similar traits that way. I think the important part is that you had new voices.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really what it was. You can only hear Pete Carroll's rules about always protect the team and it's all about the ball and always compete and all that for how many years before it gets stale. And I think that's really what it finally came down to. It was time for a fresh set of voices. And so you bring in guys to come in and do that. And that's what you saw with these coaching changes. It's a lot like, if you think about the idea that Bill Belichick has been successful as he has over the years in New England. Well, one thing that has remained constant in New England, besides Bill Belichick, is the change in coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many different dudes have rolled through there?
Patricia's been there a long time.
Patricia's been there a long time, but McDaniels has been out and then back in. You had the huge dude who coached Notre Dame for a while.
Oh yeah, right.
Charlie Weiss. Yeah, Romeo Crennel.
Sure.
You can go down the list. I mean, if you're gonna stay in charge as the head coach for that long, your voice will become stale. So you need to bring in fresh blood and fresh ideas in to challenge you in a different way, but still works within the framework of how you want to play ball. And that's what these hires are.
And after 6 to 7 years, I can understand the need for change. In fact,
no kidding, right?
There's not a lot of parallels between, these multimillionaires' jobs and those of us who have regular jobs. But I think one thing that we can all relate to is when you do get a new boss, it does put a little bit different pressure on you because you get comfortable after you've had a boss for 6-7 years.
And they get comfortable with you.
They get comfortable with you. They know your strengths. They know your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of in a comfort zone. And then when you get a new boss, all of a sudden, okay, you almost have to go out and prove yourself once again and show your new boss what your strengths and weaknesses are. And this gives them that opportunity. And Doug Baldwin was on ESPN's First Take this last week. And he had a couple comments. I want to throw these out to you, Adam.
Okay.
He says, I think it all trickles down from us as building our culture and our environment in the locker room and in this building, obviously this facility. It starts with the top. Coach Carroll has done a tremendous job in the past of preaching his philosophy and what he wants in the culture and the environment and us as players. We've just got to go back to that. We've got to go back to the basics and really buy in again because the formula is there. Obviously, it's there. We've been a very successful team the past 6 years, the past 7 years. We've been to the playoffs consecutively. So the formula is still there. It's just going back to the basics. Now, back to the basics is pretty cliche. What do you take from those comments when he says going back to basics?
I think he's saying going back to running the football. That's really, to me, what it is. And building an offensive line that actually has some nasty, that is the aggressor rather than the victim, basically. I mean, these guys just got victimized all last year.
Yeah.
And you heard some people saying that a lot of it was the complications of Tom Cable's system. And so the guys are out there thinking and reacting rather than acting.
Mm-hmm.
You hear that a lot. So I think that's probably a little bit of what he's getting to. I think the other thing that he's getting to is everybody, when you've had the level of success that these guys had and everybody starts to get paid and all that, there's a little bit of diva that pops out in everybody.
Sure.
And so I think the other thing he's trying to say is like, hey, like, do we want to win or do we just want to get paid?
Doug Baldwin strikes me as a guy who wants to win.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of what he's trying to get at with those quotes. That'd be my guess if I were to try to crawl inside Doug's head.
Sure. Well, Brian Schottenheimer, let's start with him.
Oh, we want to start with Shotty? Okay.
Yeah, I like getting the bad stuff out of the way.
How do you feel about it?
Initially, not very excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find ways for reasons of optimism.
Right.
And there were a couple things in the Rex Ryan interview. There was the thing about the loyalty, and the fact that he can do the same thing as Bevell and flip the switch somehow on the offense is interesting to me. But I look back at the reason why I was so pessimistic is especially seeing Bob Condotta, Seattle Times, put together a year-by-year look of the offenses coordinated by Brian Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
And let's just go down the list. 2006 New York Jets. Now, they went 10-6. They went to the playoffs, lost in the divisional round to the Patriots. Offensive rank, 25th in total offense, 18 in points.
Mm-hmm.
Chad Pennington, a quarterback.
Yep.
Next year, they have Chad Pennington, Kellen Clemens. They go 4-12.
Yeah. Pennington tears up his shoulder for like the 13th time.
26th and went 1-7 that year. So
yeah.
26 in total offense, 25th in points. Let's throw out that year. That's injury year.
Okay.
2008 New York Jets. This was the year with Brett Favre. They go.
I forgot he was the coordinator when Brett the Jet was there.
It's interesting because he had him the year before Darrell Bevell had him.
Oh, true enough. Yeah.
So
yeah,
we'll take a look at that. But
okay,
they go 9-7 that year. Now, Brett Favre, he also had an injury that year. Mm-hmm. Remember, there was the big hubbub over him not reporting his bicep injury.
Brett Favre do what he want.
Yeah. They went 9-7. They went out. They got out to a great start that year, and they just folded down the finish.
Yeah. Once Favre got hurt, then yeah,
they were 9th in points. So his best year, top 10 in points, and 16th in total offense.
Okay,
still middle of the pack.
Right.
Brett Favre. He was hurt. 2009 New York Jets. Now this is when Sanchez came on.
Right.
And they go to back-to-back title games. 17th in points, 20th in total offense.
Yep.
2010 Jets, also title game, 11th in total offense, 13th in points. Still outside the top 10. And then you have the 2011 New York Jets. They drop down to 8-8, 25th in total offense, 13 in points. Then he goes to the Rams, 23rd in total offense, 25th in points. Now, to be fair, he had Sam Bradford. I guess that was...
Sam Bradford's supposed to be a prestigious talent, remember?
Yeah, I know. Well, that was his third year in the NFL. I guess he did have his career high 21 touchdowns that year. Still not a great year. But you look at the next year, again, 7-9, 20th in total offense, 21 in points. Kellen Clemens, Sam Bradford gets hurt that year. You have another hurt year with Sam Bradford the next year. They go 6-10 with Austin Davis, Sean Hill. And they're 20th in total offense, 21 in points. So
what you're trying to say is that he sucked more often than he's not.
You can say that.
Can I? Because I think I can.
You can safely say that.
Yeah.
But when you look at his personnel, too.
Wonderful.
He hasn't had great personnel. And in fact, Hawk Blogger, he pulled up he went year by year as to which Pro Bowl players he had. In St. Louis, he didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody on offense that made the Pro Bowl. I think Steven Jackson might have been there. So he had a couple of okay years. Now he has a great quarterback to work with. And that brings me back to the Rex Ryan interview. One of the other things that he said was in talking about his strengths and weaknesses. He was saying he has such a good football mind that he had a hard time translating what he knew. He could do all the stuff in his head, but he had a hard time translating that to other players that he was coaching. Now, with a guy like Russell Wilson, a more natural fit then, Russell Wilson, incredibly intelligent quarterback, he won't have to translate it or dumb it down necessarily like maybe you would have with quarterbacks.
Russell Wilson's understanding of the game is much different than Mark Sanchez's.
Correct. But Brett Favre, he was a smart quarterback, although he just took a lot of chances.
Yeah, but so that year with the Jets, that wasn't Brian Schottenheimer's offense.
It was Brett Favre's offense.
Yeah.
So he's adaptive. That's another positive quality, you could say.
Yeah. So I'm going to say a bunch of stuff about Brian Schottenheimer here. And before I do, I'm going to end it with a thought that I hope gives everybody a little bit of hope. And also shed some humility on the situation for me too. All right. Remember when we signed Eddie Lacy last year?
Yeah.
And remember when everybody was going through the different backs available and everything, and I was going through all of them. I was like, the guy that I want the least by far, the guy I don't see, who sucks, and I don't want on this team is Eddie Lacy. That's exactly what I said. There's a guy I wanted by far the least. Right? When I'm going through all of the different people that could have come up for offensive coordinator, when I saw the name Brian Schottenheimer come up, I said, dear God, please, anybody but him, I will keep Darrell Bevell in a heartbeat before I go to Brian freaking Schottenheimer. Please, this is the last guy in the world that I want to be my offensive coordinator right now.
Yeah.
Here he is. Got him.
Wait, no, Brian Schottenheimer wasn't the worst. Wasn't the offensive coordinator for the Panthers at the very bottom of the list?
No, I would have taken him before Schottenheimer, because even though Shula has basically run Cam Newton into the ground, he at least was creative enough to allow that offense to work.
Okay.
He just used his quarterback incorrectly, and so his career is going to be super short.
Just when you said that you didn't want Russell Wilson to die, I took him as the worst possible option at coach.
No, he would have gotten stuff out of Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson probably would lead the league in rushing under Mike Shula. But yeah, no, Schottenheimer's by far the choice that I wanted the least. Because my big thing is I wanted somebody fresh and imaginative. I wanted somebody with some new ideas on how to implement the running game and use a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who is a unique talent. Mm-hmm. He's not Brett Favre. He's not Chad Pennington. Like, he's not he's Sanchez. He's not your traditional sit in the pocket drop back passer that fits into a Brian Schottenheimer or Marty Schottenheimer scheme. Like, it's old school football. It's an old way of thinking with the passing game and the running game. It's stale. It's tired, and it doesn't freaking work. Look at those Jets that went to the AFC Championship games. They went there on the strength of an amazing defense. If they just had an offense that did anything, they would have had championships. And so we're at a point with our organization right now where we have a very good defense. It's not that level of the 2013 defense, and it's never going to be that level again. You're going to have a very, very good defense, but you need an offense that will actually complement it, that will actually get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the hire for that. And then you mentioned the Rex Ryan interview and the loyalty aspect of it, where, okay, so Brian Schottenheimer will do exactly what he's told throughout the whole game. And even if it's not working at all and you're getting smoked,
right?
That's a horrible trait. That's a horrible quality. I don't want that at all. I want adaptive. I want innovative. I want somebody who can take a unique talent in Russell Wilson and unleash him on the league. And then on top of that,
I also put part of that on Rex Ryan as being a bad coach to the point of his
letting it go that far. Yeah.
Letting it go that far, but also being the type of guy that you're going to do it this way. Because clearly he didn't have the freedom to go outside of that until he was told that, coaches
Correct.
should be able to adapt in game based on how the flow of the game's going, how they're feeling about it. And they're going, oh, this isn't working.
And on top of that, it's a bad match in this way. Brian Schottenheimer with Pete Carroll. Basically, you have a defensive-minded coach, correct, in Pete Carroll?
Yeah.
I mean, that's his background. That's his thing. And that's where he puts the majority of his attention. You can tell. Now, you look at Brian Schottenheimer when he's been paired up with defensive-minded coaches throughout his career as offensive coordinator, whether that's Rex Ryan or Jeff Fisher, nothing happens. He gets nothing going. It'd be one thing if you paired somebody like Brian Schottenheimer with, say, like Sean Payton, right? Like, Sean Payton's going to bring some offensive flavor and some ideas to that meeting room, right? That's not what Pete Carroll's doing. He's looking at Brian Schottenheimer to come in each and every week with the new creative game plan and be like, hey, look at how we're going to exploit the Arizona Cardinals this week. Like, check this out. I've got this new route concept that nobody's seen yet. Isn't this freaking cool? That's not Brian Schottenheimer. It's Marty Ball. And as much as I enjoyed Marty Ball in the 90s, and as much as Pete Carroll wants to play Marty Ball and win every game 17-13, we have to switch as a team to revolving around our quarterback.
Well, Marty Ball, we saw that work really well when
how many championships did it win?
When he got, it didn't win any championships, but
there you go.
When he had Joe Montana and Marcus Allen at the end of their careers, they almost went to a Super Bowl.
That's true. I like Marty Schottenheimer as a coach. I do, and I think he got hosed a little bit in San Diego and all that, and in Washington. But I couldn't be less excited about Brian Schottenheimer. To me, it's a clear downgrade. I think Darrell Bevell is the more creative coach of the two. And I think that this is going to be a terrible hire, and it's going to hamper us for the next 2 to 3 years. Now, I said I would end my whole thought process on Brian Schottenheimer with something that hopefully give you a little bit of hope.
Okay.
When we hired Pete Carroll, I was beyond not excited.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, rah Pete.
I remember my non-excitement.
Yeah.
And all the Huskies fans that were super not excited about having a USC coach.
Yeah. Oh, he failed in the NFL before. He's going to fail again.
Right.
That rah college crap won't work here. He's not that bright. Blah, 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 blah. And I was dead freaking wrong.
Right.
So what I'm hoping is that I'm dead freaking wrong on Brian Schottenheimer in the same way. And so what I'm hoping is, you mentioned that Schottenheimer has a hard time communicating his beautiful mind to the players, right?
Right.
Okay. What I'm hoping is that Brian Schottenheimer had a moment when he was back as quarterback coach for the Colts, or whatever he's done since leaving the Rams, right?
Yeah.
Similar to what Pete Carroll went through when he was let go by the Patriots and he went to USC, where he sat down and he actually figured out his philosophy, how to communicate and really make it clear. And that's something that Pete Carroll talks a lot about. And so what I'm hoping is he's seen that in Brian, that it's come to that point to where the aha light switch went off. Okay, now I know how I know exactly how I want to play ball. I know how to communicate it, and I have a clear vision, and he'll be a raging success. Let's hope that's the case. But if you want my official prediction, this sets us back 2 to 3 years, and we waste 2 to 3 years of Russell Wilson's prime. And I'm freaking frustrated.
That would be frustrating. And I think that's where a lot of the concern is for Seahawks fans. Now, I did mention both Darrell Bevell, Brian Schottenheimer had Brett Favre as quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2007, the year before Favre got there, the Jets were 25th in the NFL in points.
Mm-hmm.
They improved to 9th in the NFL in points when they brought in Brett Favre, up 16 spots from the previous year. Darrell Bevell, he had Brett Favre the next year. The Vikings in 2008 were number 12 in points. Mm-hmm. They went up to number 2, 10 spots.
And it was also Brett Favre's best year ever as a professional when it came to not throwing picks.
So when I compare those two,
Darrell Bevell got more.
Darrell Bevell went up 10 spots. Brian Schottenheimer went up 16 spots from the previous year. Brian Schottenheimer is 6 better than Bevell.
Darrell Bevell got Brett Favre to not throw a ton of picks for a year.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That's amazing. And then Brett's arm fell off the next year. Well, actually, Brett didn't want to get hit the next year.
Yeah.
And then it was over. But no, I'm not excited. This was a terrible hire, in my opinion. I was hoping for somebody young with fresh ideas that would really change the offense and give us a very dynamic running game. And I don't think this is your man for that. But here's hoping. Go get him, Shotty.
I was hoping for Mike Holmgren, but I knew that wasn't realistic.
You think a pass-first offensive coach like Holmgren could work with a run-first defensive coach like Carroll?
No, there's no way.
No way.
That was just in my wildest dreams.
Yeah, the Big Show and Rah Pete, that ain't happening.
Those two would not, no.
It's a neat idea, though.
If they could find a way for those two, if they could just totally separate the team like in 2 halves.
Kind of like Buddy Ryan and... it's on the Bears, like Buddy Ryan and Mike Ditka. Yeah. Where they just totally just put it right down the middle. Like the defense was all Buddy.
I don't think that they would fight like those two, though, like physically. But
I don't know. I don't know. I could see it happening.
I couldn't see either of those two coaches throwing on each other.
I could see Holmgren throwing on Pete.
No.
But not the other way around.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. You could see when Mike Holmgren got
see, Mike Holmgren doesn't seem like a guy who would throw punches. He would maybe like choke a dude.
Yeah, he's a choker for sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a good call by you. Big Show is a strangler.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
That's the impression that I get.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he were to get really mad, he'd choke somebody out.
Right. If he were to be a serial killer, strangulation would be the way to go.
Just saying, if he got really mad at a dude,
okay,
that rather than punching,
he's a choker.
You would put him in a headlock.
All right.
Choke him out.
Night.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm watching too much MMA.
I guess so. Would he give him a rear naked choke?
Maybe.
Okay.
It's the best move.
It's the dirtiest sounded one. I know that much. Yeah.
Well, moving on to the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
Ken Norton Jr. So obviously 2 out of 3. This one's on the plus side.
Mm-hmm.
Clint Stevens on the Facebook page said, based on the entire transaction with Richard, and I know it was really confusing if you followed it in the media, as far as Kris Richard was reportedly going to be let go, and then reportedly it was just, looking for jobs, and then he was fired. And Clint Stevens says, how it's all transacted has been bad form. I like Norton, though. He did not have the personnel with the Raiders to pull off what the Hawks do. And there's a couple things here. The bad form part, I'm not sure I'm able to go that far, but because we don't know exactly how it went down as far as Richard being...
We don't know how it went down in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's the most vague thing that I could come across when it comes to all this coaching news. Like, we really have no clue. Like, there was Pete like, look, we're going to move on from you from defensive coordinator, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to go out and like interview for some head coaching jobs without canning you right away to try to, hopefully get you into that next position. But if that doesn't work out, then we're going to need to talk about you maybe being let go.
Yeah.
Or
he could have been very civil about it. And at the same time, Norton had already accepted a job with the 49ers as defensive coordinator. So that kind of was weird how it went down. Yeah,
I keep forgetting about that
aspect. And the 49ers, and that was part of the reason why I was referencing early reports with Ken Norton, because the 49ers had confirmed that they had let Ken Norton out of his deal to go with another unspecified team, they said. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it was pretty obvious that it was the Seahawks. So they kind of confirmed the news early on, too, before the Seahawks officially announced it. So this has been one of the more interesting ones to follow. But I do like what Clint said. I don't look at the Raiders as a failure for Ken Norton. One, he was behind a defensive coach who
had his own scheme.
And may have been asked to. He definitely didn't improve the Raiders defense now with guys like Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin, but they had a really bad secondary.
Yeah, it was pretty poor. But if you're just looking at last year, you're going to kind of shake your head at Ken Norton a little bit. But if you look at the year previous to that, when the Raiders played really well, ended up going to the playoffs, the defense was very serviceable. Wasn't great, but it was very serviceable. But yeah, the back end of that defense was horrific. And you can only do so much. I mean, you can't play single high safety in that Seahawks and bring that other safety down in the box and play Seahawks style defense if you don't have Earl Thomas.
Or if you don't have really talented corners.
Or if you don't even have a Bradley McDougald.
Right.
Like they didn't even have a dude of that stature back there. So, yeah, it was going to be a dumpster fire for a while. And it was.
Because you could throw all over the Raiders.
Right. But again, I don't put that a ton on Ken Norton. I don't know about you, but I'm excited for this hire. I was really hoping he would get the job in the first place instead of Richard back in the day.
Well, Richard just seemed like maybe, he's still a young dude.
Which was fine. I mean, I'm not upset with the job that Kris Richard did in any way.
I think he did a fine job, and I think that's where some of the confusion comes with this hire too, or just the idea of letting Kris Richard go. He didn't do a terrible job.
No, I think this is a lateral move. Like, I don't think this is an improvement or a decrease.
This is a tweak.
Yeah, and this is exactly how the tweak goes. So Kris Richard was the position coach for which position before he became defensive backs? Defensive backs, right? This team has revolved around the defensive backs pretty much this whole iteration of this defense, correct?
Right.
Well, I found ourselves talking through this last season about how much this defense revolved around the linebackers, Wagner and KJ Wright. And going forward, as long as we have Bobby, I felt like pretty good, right? I mean, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink, him and KJ together.
And two guys who are super fired up to have Coach Norton back on the team.
Ken Norton, the former linebackers coach in Seattle when we did win a title, the guy that is going to have the mindset of this team revolving around the linebackers rather than the defensive backs. And I think that's the tweak. And I love it. I think it's the exact right move right now with the personnel that you have, with where they are and what stages of their careers.
And there was that hint out there that Richard could be back as defensive backs coach. That would be great if it worked out.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I don't know how.
Depends on what his and Ken Norton's relationship is like.
Yeah.
If they're cool and they're like super tight and like this is just how it went down and nobody felt like they were getting stabbed in the back or anything like that. And it was all on the up and up. And Richard looks around the league and he could take like a Raiders defensive backfield job or Colts defensive backfield job or something, where it's just horrendous. And you're like, God, I'll go there to die as a coach.
He'll probably end up going to the 49ers.
Yeah.
And actually that might be a better spot than those other two jobs.
Right. He may look back and be like, hey, if the opening is there to come back and work with the LOB, then yeah, I'll go and do that. Or maybe he's looking for the next challenge. Who knows? But it doesn't much matter. I mean, we'll find out. Well, maybe we'll never find out since I've been so weird and secretive about this whole thing.
Sure.
But I think this is a solid move and just a change of voice in the locker room because Ken Norton's he's a fired up guy. He's going to bring some energy and some swag back to this defense.
Well, when I go back and I watch that Super Bowl 48 video, it's Ken Norton Jr.
Yeah.
Talking to his dudes saying, we're going to go out and pound them.
Yeah. Kick some ass.
that part of the video is just so clear to me.
Right. Yeah. It painted or made a strong impression.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of who Ken Norton is. So I'm excited for Ken Norton. I'm fired up like Bobby and KJ. I've read a few of KJ's comments and he does seem genuinely excited.
All right. Well, before we get into our discussion with Keith Myers and a little bit more in-depth talk on Tom Cable's departure and the arrival of Mike Solari, Adam, I want to get your impressions of, one, Tom Cable being let go. One of the things last week when we recorded it was right on the verge of happening. Mm-hmm. Darrell Bevell had just been let go. There was some questions about whether or not, because Darrell Bevell was the first guy announced. Yeah. Could Tom Cable, could he be the guy who they're going to announce it as offensive coordinator? And I know there are a lot of Seahawks fans going, I don't know.
Maybe that would have been last on their list.
Maybe that would have been last on the list. Shoot, going back and listening to some of our old shows, we had talked about the potential of Tom Cable being the guy, being kind of the hometown guy.
Yep.
As a potential successor for Pete Carroll.
Yes.
And
I honestly think if things had gone successsul for him, that was the plan. I still believe that was the plan.
If the running game wouldn't have tanked the last couple of years,
like it did. Yeah, between the running game and the O-line, like if that had been a success, all the experiments that he did and the cross training and like all that.
If it would have worked, he would have.
He would have been Pete Carroll's successor. I feel very strongly about that.
But now, after we've seen what we have with the offensive line, one thing that, it seemed like time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely felt like time. Yeah.
It would have made me maybe even feel a little bit better to see that name first over Darrell Bevell.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you need to go a different direction from both guys. But with that said, yes, Tom Cable seemed to be the one that needed to go first and foremost. Look, he helped bring us a title.
I say that about Percy Harvin now.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, I do appreciate Coach Cable, and the players seem to like him and all of that. But yeah, it was time for us to do things differently. What I'm hoping is that Solari is a better talent evaluator on the offensive line than Tom Cable.
Yeah, and Lisa on the Facebook page, Lisa Carlson says, this seems like back to basics to me to get the run game going. Solari maybe can actually teach technique instead of zone scheme. I heard Rex Ryan talk about our O-line with Cable, and his opinion was the zone blocking in Seattle has been ineffective since the NFL changed the cut block rules, which he relied heavily on, talking about Cable.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be, again, it's maybe, and this may be a little bit more of a tweak than the Ken Norton hire. A little bit more significant, but I would expect them to stick with the same scheme. Now, I'd recommend everybody go check out Samuel Gold. He did a breakdown of the different schemes within the zone blocking scheme that Solari has coached over the years, going back to his time with Seattle in 2008, 2009, with his time in San Francisco in the early 2010s,
mm-hmm.
and then with the Giants, and showing just some of the differences in how they can, whether it's power zone or inside zone.
Yeah.
The different types of concepts within the zone blocking scheme. And it's interesting how he breaks it down. If you're into the really nitty gritty stuff on the offensive line and scheming.
Yeah.
Samuel Gold, check it out on Field Goals.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of my next deep dives for sure.
Yeah.
I find that stuff to be very interesting. But one of the things I remember about a Solari line is, like you said, when he was with the Niners and us getting smoked with that freaking trap play for like 3 games in a row. Like, I just, you're like, wait a sec, where'd that come from? And all of a sudden the guards are pulling different directions and all that. And we just couldn't handle it for like 2-3 games in a row. Now we finally figured it out, but there was some creativity there.
Right.
The other thing, Cameron Cole posted this on the Ring of Honor, that it was a quote from, I think, Walter Jones, saying that when he picks his 5, you won't see a lot of movement. Like, yes, that makes me do cartwheels. Like the idea that you'd be like, okay, Ethan Posick, you're going to learn right guard. I think you can succeed at right guard. Here are the ways that you can play right guard. You're going to be a right guard.
That's your spot.
That's your spot. That's all you need to think about. No, you don't need to worry about your kick step as a left tackle. No, you're a right guard. And I need you to lift more weights and do these 3 things. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I want some clarity.
Ethan Posick, by the way, Pro Football Writers of America, all rookie team.
I found that to be very interesting.
There were not a lot of good guards this year.
Apparently not. And not that Posick did a bad job. He just, he was fine. He was fine. I guess I just wouldn't have looked at him as like a standout rookie.
No, you think of Shaq Griffin being a standout rookie.
Yeah.
You have Tre'Davious White and Marshawn Lattimore as the rookie corners for the Pro Football Writers, which, if
whatever, I
probably
guess
number 3 or 4 in that group, but there were a lot of good corners this last year, so it wasn't so surprising to not see him on that list. But congrats to Ethan Posick.
Whatever. If Shaq Griffin is listening right now, you should be pissed.
Yeah.
You got snubbed. This is a bunch of crap. You're gonna have to come out there and get 20 picks next year.
Yeah,
just to shut them up.
20 picks, just 20 times more than this last year,
or 23 picks.
Yeah,
you get even more if he wants.
We're not limiting Shaq Griffin on the number of picks he can get next.
Oh, hell no. Maybe 30. I don't know. Like, the sky's the limit for Shaq because he should have a chip on his shoulder. That's all I'm getting at.
Got snubbed.
Yeah, but no, on the Solari hiring, I'm optimistic, man. I think when your offensive line has been the worst in football for the past 2 to 3 years, you literally think to yourself, if anybody comes in that has a different philosophy, it's going to be better. If anybody comes in, I don't care what their history is, like any of that. Like, just if anybody comes in, it's going to be better. And so I think that's where most of our feelings come from on this. Is like, it's just got to be better. Like I said, hopefully he's better at talent evaluation too.
Well, Michael Paul was a little bit skeptical on the Facebook page, says the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and hoping for a different result. This certainly applies to the O-line. We knew what didn't work, yet we keep doing it. Maybe the personnel just weren't the right people to make it work, but as coach, you've got to be able to see this and change your scheme to suit your player strengths. Not sure this happened, but when you look back and the fact that Solari coached the Giants the last 2 years, and you start going,
All right, so we have such recency bias in our thinking. So when I sat here and took a big dump on Brian Schottenheimer, it's not because his last year of being an offensive coordinator was terrible. It's because his entire tenure of being an offensive coordinator was terrible.
Right.
Okay, so that's an overarching thing. Solari, you see some success and not success. And even just with the Giants, I don't know if you remember the talk about this time last year about the New York Giants. Eli's been revitalized. That passing game is unbelievable. They figured out the run game. He's gotten their offensive line to play better with guys that look like were busts. And it was all coming. They had one of the best defenses in football. That was coming off of the previous season.
Yeah.
And then they have a dumpster fire season this year. And I don't know how much you can blame an offensive line coach for that type of season, especially when your head coach is a mob boss, and Ben McAdoo. So I think that falls more on McAdoo than anybody else. But there was obviously some major locker room issues there and things like that. And I don't think you can point at the offensive line coach as like the guy.
No, I don't think he was screwing up the team chemistry.
Yeah, I'll give him a bit of a pass for that last year with the Giants.
The thing that they talked about with the Giants over the offseason, too, is recognizing that the personnel that they had the previous year weren't the greatest, and they went out and did nothing to address it.
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of it was put on his plate, too. So I see similarities with all three of these coaches to our previous coaches.
Sure. But then you listen to somebody like Walter Jones and how he feels like this is a massive upgrade in the sense of it'll allow the players to become aggressive again. And then who was the other fellow that...
Walter Jones could have a spot on the Seahawks staff with how positive he is about everything.
Yeah, Walter Jones has a spot. Like I'll just put it this way: Walter Jones has a spot in my life. Anytime, anywhere, I will create a position for Walter Jones. Like whatever it is he wants to do. But who was the other offensive lineman that was on the radio recently talking about this hire? I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Ray Roberts?
Yes. It was Ray Roberts, and talking about how he even felt like Dwayne Brown had regressed under Tom Cable's system with the way that he would have him play, and how much he thinks that Dwayne Brown will have even a better season next year with better coaching in that facet. And then also, too, I mean, I touched on this in the last podcast. I think the next offensive coordinator and O-line coach, I think they're going to benefit a little bit of having the fruition of the investment that's been made in the offensive line finally come together, and it happens to be under their watch. Whether that's you're talking Dwayne Brown, whether you're talking Fetty maybe turning the corner, Ethan Posick putting on a little strength. I mean, these are all high draft picks, right? Or big trades. Justin Britt being a high draft pick. All of that draft capital that was put into the offensive line, now getting to that second, third, fourth year, and it could really come together with the addition of Dwayne Brown. They may reap the rewards that were coming to Cable anyways.
I could see it happening. Look at Jacksonville and all the credit that's being given to Tom Coughlin.
Oh, my God.
For the defense that Gus Bradley essentially helped build.
I feel so bad for Gus Bradley.
I know.
I feel so bad for Gus Bradley. That's his team.
Yeah.
That it plays the way that he wanted. I mean, that's his team. Oh, God, yeah. I feel terrible for that guy.
All right, well, on that Ray Roberts talk, that's actually something that comes up with my discussion with Keith Myers.
All right, let's get to it.
Get into it. This week, we welcome on Keith Myers of 12th Man Rising and co-host of the Hawks Playbook podcast. Keith, how you doing? Welcome back.
I'm doing good. It's been a while. Glad to be back on the show.
Yeah, thanks. And a lot to talk about this week, too, because a lot of changes among the coaches for the Seahawks. And Keith, you may have been one of the most outspoken proponents for moving on from Tom Cable.
Probably. You're not going to find someone who is more excited for the Seahawks to find a new offensive line coach than me.
So I have to know, when that news came down here last week, what was your reaction?
Just pure excitement all the way around. I mean, the fact that they will have a coach now who, instead of making players worse, will actually make players better. You're going to see this team's offensive line be significantly better, even if they don't change the personnel. And that is everything we could hope for.
It's interesting. You're saying that he made players worse. And in some cases, I can see that. But in other cases, too, you look at guys like J.R. Sweezy. He went on to be a productive lineman. I mean, not a great lineman, but at least, coming from the background of playing defensive line, he turned into a serviceable lineman. You have James Carpenter that went on to play well for the Jets. What players did you see where you saw a significant decline?
If you look at Russell Okung, he's a good example. He got steadily worse every year under Cable. And then when he left and went to Denver and then to San Diego, he went back to playing at a Pro Bowl level.
Yeah.
If you look at Max Unger, he struggled with injuries, but his play was really good when Cable came and in the first year on him. And then he kind of dropped down, and there you started seeing him just miss guys completely and just block no one, especially at the second level, which he never did. And now he's moved on and he's back to playing at a Pro Bowl level. Carpenter, you're right. He went on to play great for the Jets. He played significantly better for the Jets under a different offensive line coach than he ever played for Seattle under Tom Cable. Sweezy, he got hurt his first year after leaving, so it's kind of hard to judge him, but he played pretty well this year, better than he probably played in Seattle. So you just see all these guys get better after they leave. And then when you see guys like Dwayne Brown, who's, a Pro Bowl offensive tackle, come in and each week get progressively worse as Cable messes with his technique and it starts asking him to do things that just don't make a lot of sense. Like the whole scheme about how he teaches guys to pass block and making offensive tackles watch two gaps, and then basically they stick their arms out in both directions. And if they end up having to block a speed rusher, they're blocking him with one hand. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And of course, a guy like Brown's going to struggle when you put him in a position that he's not going to be successful in. And that's one of the things that Tom Cable did in the pass blocking, but also in run blocking. He did not put his guys in a position where they could be successful. He put them in a position to fail a lot. And guess what? They failed a lot. So that was my biggest problem with Cable.
Had they not traded away their center for Jimmy Graham, Max Unger, had they kept Max Unger, Carpenter, Sweezy, Okung, and then drafted, and maybe let's say they stick with Ifedi at right tackle, do you think Tom Cable would still be here, or do you think we would still have the same issues with the personnel that have left and been successful?
I think we would still have the same issues because you saw Russell Okung's steady decline every year under Cable, and that would have, I honestly believe that would have continued. And the problems that we've had in the running game for the past 2.5 seasons haven't been, it isn't just an offensive line like talent issue, it's a scheme issue. You've got the fact that the league has changed the rules on chop blocks and made it so that what in the classic Gibbs, which the Gibbs Cable zone blocking scheme, there's a lot of cut blocks on the backside in order to get the defenders on the ground, and it creates space for the running backs. Well, when the NFL changed the chop block rule, they essentially ruled out those kind of cut blocks in the running game because it was too easy to end up with a 15-yard penalty. And Cable never adapted to that. He never gave his guys another way to reach that player, which is 3 positions over. I mean, positions, I don't mean on the field, I mean the way you line up. So like a gap and a half over to the play side. So when you're asking a guy to reach block that far, you can't cut anymore. How do you expect that player to get in front of the defensive player and seal and get that block? And Cable never adapted to that. And so I think the problems with the running game were never going to get solved, regardless of who was playing there.
Where do you come out in terms of the talent evaluation portion of it? Do you think that was primarily due to Tom Cable having such an influence into the players he wanted and the talent he wanted on the offensive line? Or do you have some questions about the people within the Seahawks organization in acquiring offensive line talent either through the draft or free agency?
I have questions on both, and we won't find out until this year and going forward how much of it was Cable and how much of it is, Schneider and the rest of the front office. We do know that they drafted Okung before Cable came, and then when Cable came, he asked for a different type of player. He wanted bigger guys, stronger, straight ahead blockers, and he didn't care if they had slower feet, and that's why we ended up with a lot of guys like Ifedi and Justin Britt and those guys. So he was kind of asked for a different type of player. Now, we do know that Tom Cable was extremely invested in the scouting of these guys. Like, these were his guys. These were the guys that he wanted. He came back to Seattle and said, these are the guys I want. Here's my short list of players. Go get them for me. And so we know that was kind of the situation that John Schneider was in. Now, he still drafted them. He still drafted them where he did instead of maybe waiting later or trading back more. It was one of those situations where they could have done it differently, but we do know that the actual picking of which guys, that was mostly Cable. He was the guy who created the scouting reports on those players and said, these are the ones I want.
So the Seahawks, they go out and they hire Mike Solari to fill in behind Cable, actually coach the offensive line in maybe two of the worst years in recent history with 2008 and 2009. But how do you feel about that choice, Keith? I
really like it. He is the guy. So if you look at when he was in Seattle, that was the year that the Seahawks were pulling guys off the street. I think one of the guys was working for UPS because they had so many injuries at tackle, and they were pulling guys off the street, and then a week later they were having to play because everyone was getting hurt. And so, for the team to have a semi-functional line in that kind of situation, I think says a lot about Solari's ability to simplify the game and make it easy for his guys. And then if you look at after he left Seattle, he went to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And those 3 years when Frank Gore just ran over everybody, and they went to 3 straight conference championship games, and they had that just really good running attack with, it was just really diverse. It wasn't just zone. They had, they ran counter, trap, power, just a little of everything in that year, or those 3 years. And he was kind of the architect behind that, the guy who ran that line. He's a guy that can teach and simplify things and make it easy on the linemen so they're not thinking, they're just playing, which is the exact opposite of what Cable always had guys do. And I think you're going to end up seeing just a better product because of it.
I definitely like to look at the 49ers years more than I do, say, as recent years with the Giants. Because I know a lot of people they look at his time in Seattle, and then they look at his time with the Giants. They go, well, which is more his style?
One of the things that is interesting is that he's a guy, because he's done a little of everything, he can coach to what the offense wants it to do. Now, you look at when he was with the Giants, their offensive line was not always great, especially in run blocking. But a couple of years ago, they had the best line in the NFL in terms of pass protection. And that's very different from Solari and what you're used to seeing with him, where he is a guy that likes to develop a run game and that kind of stuff. So he seems to be more versatile in his ability to take what talent is there and make it work and fit it in with what the offensive scheme that's being run. And so I get why the last couple of years you look at with Solari, you're going, okay, well, maybe we should be a little worried, but the track record before the last couple of years with the Giants, with San Francisco and Seattle and Kansas City before that, he's got something like 12 years of his career where he's been the offensive line coach of a team that's finished in the top 8 in the NFL in rushing. And I know that's a lot of numbers throwing in there, but it's just a lot of years where his rushing attacks are really good. They're in the top third. And then you throw in a couple of years where his pass blocking has been, at or near the top in the league. So I just think that overall, you look at the body of work, this is a guy that we can really look at and think, okay, this is going to be a good hire and a good move for the Seahawks.
Well, and I should point out, too, that although the records weren't that great for the 2008 and 2009 Seahawks, you still, in 2008, you had Julius Jones and Maurice Morris both rushing for more than 4 yards a carry. Jones was on the kind of the downside of his career. Maurice Morris was backup toward the downside of his career. And shoot, we would have taken 4.5 yards per carry this season by our running backs. That would have been great. And then in 2009, you had Jones again and Justin Forsett backing him up. And Jones was... he dropped down below 4, but Forsett, he was running. That was before he went and joined the Ravens and ran well with them, and he was over 5 yards a carry that year. So I look at that, and I'm optimistic there.
Absolutely, and like I said, and then you look at when he left Seattle and he went to San Francisco. They had Gore, but then they also had, and his name is escaping me right now, but his backup, which after he left San Francisco basically fell out of the league and disappeared. But while he was running behind that line and in that system, looked like he was a guy that could carry the load for a team. And it turned out to be more of a system issue than it really was a player talent issue with that running back.
Kendall Hunter.
Yes, there you go.
So when you look at the offensive line and you consider Solari coming in, who do you think that they will decide to keep around? Do you think that for the most part it's going to stick together, or do you see personnel changes coming too?
Well, we're going to see some personnel changes because Tom Cable was very committed to his guys that he'd picked. Guys like Ifedi and Reese Odiambo, and their position on this roster is no longer guaranteed the way it was if Cable had been here. I do think you're going to see Dwayne Brown back and starting. You're going to see Justin Britt back and starting. You're going to see Ethan Posick back and starting. But after that, there's a possibility they could go in a lot of different directions. I really think, based on his talents, that we'll see Jermaine Ifedi back inside at guard. That's where his slow feet belong, and he'll have to compete with someone to earn that starting job and not just be given it. And they're going to have to go out and look for a right tackle. Maybe that'll be George Fant. Maybe it won't, but we have some options there. Or maybe it'll be a new draft pick or, that kind of thing. But I do think that you're going to see that. I think those three guys, Brown, Britt, and Posick will be back and starting. It's just a matter of, okay, now finding the right pieces to fit around them in the last two positions.
So you could potentially see Posick moving over to left guard, Ifedi being the right guard, and then looking for a right tackle. That's
actually, at least on paper, ideal. That's actually kind of ideal, what I would say. Because the Seahawks don't have a ton of draft capital to go out and, to spend draft picks on, replacing most of the line or anything. And they don't have a lot of cap space to go out and sign a good free agent. So I think if they can get 4 starters out of those 4 guys and only need to add a right tackle, and possibly, when you've got a guy like Fant out there as a possibility, it allows the team to move forward into next year without expending a lot of resources to try and fix the personnel on the line.
So if you had to predict, what does this mean for Jimmy Graham?
I would say that both this hire and the one of Brian Schottenheimer at offensive coordinator mean that Jimmy Graham is not going to be part of Seattle next year. The system that's coming in is going to be back to the early Pete Carroll era in Seattle. This is 2010, 2011, 2012 kind of offense where, a lot of inline tight ends, a lot of 2 tight end sets, a lot of power running, and you can't have a guy who doesn't want to block and can't block in there as your primary tight end. So I just think that the offense is going to evolve back to the principles of Pete Carroll's offensive philosophy, and that really just doesn't fit a guy like Jimmy Graham. So I think they'll just use their resources elsewhere.
You mentioned it, Pete Carroll wanting to go back to his offensive philosophy. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest message that came across in these hires. And then you also have the, bringing back Ken Norton to coach the defense. Overall, when you look at these hires, what's the sense? Are you getting a sense of optimism? Because I think among a lot of Seahawks fans out there, there's a lot of questions, and maybe in terms of the idea that there's so many young coaches out there, trying to find, the next big thing. And then Coach Carroll goes out and gets guys that have they've been around.
I mean, it's a little weird because I can understand some of the worry about the Brian Schottenheimer hire, because he is a guy who, when he was with the Rams, just looked like he didn't really have any idea what he was doing. It was just super predictable and very just refusing to do anything other than, the script. And there was just no creativity. It was just really boring. And of course, and the extension of that is that they weren't good. And there's a lot of concern there. And I think that there's a reason to be concerned, but at the same time, this is also, Schottenheimer is a guy who will do what Pete Carroll wants, and that is pound the football with the running attack and just wear defenses out, run them over, make them feel it to their sore the next day. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna wear teams out, and that's what they want, and Schottenheimer will bring that to them. But at the same time, I don't have an issue with people being a little concerned because of the track record during his Saints years. Now, if you go back to when he was with the Jets and he had Mark Sanchez as his quarterback, and he still managed to put together pretty good offenses and, got him to the AFC title games behind that defense. And if he can kind of find that magic and get that going in Seattle, I think we'll be in great shape.
Ken Norton, how did you feel about that hire, going away from Kris Richard for the last few years and back to Ken Norton, who at the time Richard was hired, it seemed to be between those two coaches. Now, there must not be any animosity from Norton's perspective to come back. So I wonder how that went down. And I'm also wondering how you feel about that hire.
The hire, I mean, the defensive coordinator job in Seattle is one of those where you're running Pete's system. This isn't where you're asking guys to be creative, because you're running Pete Carroll's defense, and he's the defensive guru on the team. And so it's a little weird. I mean, because if you look at what happened in Oakland with Ken Norton, he went down there. He didn't really have a lot of control over the defense because it was Jack Del Rio's defense. The one thing that I would throw in here is Ken Norton is the master motivator on the coaching staff, and that's what he has always been. And he's also the disciplinarian. I mean, he was the guy who enforced curfew. He was the guy who woke everyone up in the morning during camp. The guys love him, but they love him because he's really harsh. But then at the same time, on game day, he's just a really good motivator and just really tries to get the most out of the individual players. And they've really missed all of that since he left to go to Oakland.
Keith, really want to thank you for coming on the show. 12thmanrising.com. Follow you on Twitter at Myers NFL, and of course, catch you on the Hawks Playbook podcast. Are you guys going to be doing that show throughout the offseason?
We will. We do it every week. Have been doing it. We just recorded episode 46, so we've done it we're 6 weeks away from our 1 year anniversary of doing the show every week, and you can find us. We usually post Tuesday afternoons.
Thanks again to Keith for coming on the show, talking a little bit of offensive line. I know he was pumped. And to close out the discussion, Sherry Matthews left a comment on the Facebook page, and I think this is a point of optimism that we can all close out with regard to these coaching changes. She says, well, I'm willing to give new coaching a fair shake to see what they can do. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to move forward. Wishing the best to the former coaches. Let's keep going forward for a great 2018 season. Love my Seahawks. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. All right. I like that. That's more optimistic than I was when it came to...
You were only pessimistic on one of the three.
Yeah, that's true. I said I was 2/3 happy.
And I improved that to almost 80%, so...
Yeah, that's some new math. I'm not sure that really adds up.
If Pete Carroll would have retired, John Schneider would have left.
It sounds like some particle physics crap or something, yeah. where you had a cork in two places or something at the same time and added them up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think you manufactured happiness from nothing. I think you took iron and turned it into gold. I think you're an alchemist.
I mean, I found 13% of happiness where you couldn't find it.
Where it doesn't exist. Just created the element.
Yeah. I'm
extraordinary minimum or something like that. Extraordinary minimum.
Is that what the element is?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a new one. Just made it up.
You made it up. I found it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if that's how it works.
That's exactly how the scientific process works.
Why don't we get into the second half of the show?
Okay.
I want to talk about Bobby Wagner and Earl Thomas. I want to talk about the London game coming up. That was announced just as we finished up last week.
Yeah.
And we got some pick 'em lead to talk about. We got some new members of the flock. And of course, we got some do better and better at life.
Before that, Brandon, I figured you must have forgotten about the arrest that happened. If anything,
yes.
You must be more high than anything right now. That's why you forgot.
Than anything. That was the Jeremy Lane arrest. If there's anything entertaining about that came out, was that one, he didn't recognize that you can get a DUI for being under the legal limit of alcohol.
You can be catfished up on all sorts of different things and get a DUI. Right. Like if you're catfished up and drive,
that's a DUI.
That's a DUI. Right. Yes. Like I don't know. Like I'm surprised that I feel like I need to say that so that maybe there's a few people like Jeremy Lane who are like, oh wow, I didn't realize
the under the influence doesn't just mean alcohol.
I figured if I smoked some crack and started driving, it would be fine. I couldn't get a Dewey that way.
But my favorite part of it was that he had to let us know that he was probably more high than anything.
Yep.
Like, just to clarify, I was not liquored up.
No.
I was freaking high.
Right. And which is equally as bad.
If you're driving, yeah. If you're messed up.
Look, this will be an unpopular viewpoint, but if you're wicked stoned and driving,
you're
probably driving 15 under the speed limit. Like really afraid that you're running into everything and everybody and hyper aware. Not that that's good. You're still a road hazard.
Right. You're still a hazard.
Right. Whereas if you're, hammered, you're probably flying down the road, taking all sorts of crazy risks and all that.
Or swerving. I mean, Yeah.
You're not. The control level's down.
Yeah. The control level's probably down with both, but
your reaction time is definitely down with the greens. Yeah. No doubt. But yeah.
Reaction time down with both. Maybe a little more wobbly on alcohol.
Right. So anyways, I guess maybe it was better.
This is just going off of, not experience.
Oh, this is total experience. I try this out in the parking lot all the time. I'll set up cones, get smashed and just see how I do. Do driving tests for myself. Just
scientific experiments.
Right. So I'm a firm believer that there should be different levels for DUIs for different people. You should be able to test into different brackets. There should be a driving
when you
test.
go to your driver's test?
Right. Yeah. You go and you just start getting hammered, you blow. And then because I feel strongly that I'm probably a better driver than 80% of the people out there. If I was hammered as hell.
Right.
That's how bad other people who are just not that makes me a great driver when I'm drunk.
No,
I'm just saying
you're an excellent driver when you're sober.
Right.
Top
and a
tier.
mediocre driver to below average as a drunk driver.
Yeah, there's people who are completely sober who run into parked cars all the time.
That's what I'm saying. And they're totally fine.
Right.
So
they can't drink at all.
Right. So I should be able to test into a different level.
I like this theory.
There's nothing that could go wrong with this.
Nothing at all.
It's a rock solid, foolproof, non-explosive, non-offensive viewpoint.
Won't be controversial at all.
None. In fact, I'm going to run for president, and that's going to be part of my platform. 1, you can't write checks in the checkout line, and 2, you should be able to test into a different Dewey category.
Toxicity brackets.
Yes, for your driver's test. Jeremy Lane's going to be my running mate. This is boneheaded, man, for Jeremy Lane.
That was boneheaded.
This is.
He was on the way out anyway.
Well, now he's definitely on the way out.
Definitely on the way out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, at least maybe we both found that similarly entertaining.
Not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
No.
Well, 2 other guys I wanted to talk about, Bobby Wagner, Earl Thomas, both recognized by the Pro Football Writers Association. Bobby Wagner getting first team All-Pro or All-NFL. I guess it's a little bit different than the first team, second team stuff. They do All-NFL, which Bobby Wagner made as middle linebacker, and then Earl Thomas made the NFC team for the Pro Football Writers. So congrats to them, along with Ethan Posick, who we mentioned a little bit earlier.
All right. I'm sure the players love these awards that are given out by the media.
We should do our own awards that they don't care about.
Sure. Yeah. Just so you know, I mean, before we get into it, like, I'm the winner.
Oh, okay.
The bestest ever everything award.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Like the best pass rusher on the Seahawks?
No, bestest everything at all times.
Okay.
Award.
You're giving it to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not only better at life than Skip Bayless, like I'm better at everything.
I feel like I have no input on this award.
Well, how could you? I'm the bestest ever, so I'm the only one qualified to give it out, and it's got to go to me.
Sound logic, I guess.
Totally.
From the same logic that just came up with toxicity brackets.
Yeah, this is it. Look, I am a scholar. Like, there is no doubt about that.
All right. London game coming up. Week 6 against the Oakland Raiders.
I'm excited
Not
for
Las
this.
Vegas Raiders yet, but Oakland Raiders. John Gruden, head coach of the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Tom Cable coaching the O-line for the Raiders.
Correct.
And it's going to be in London. It's the Seahawks road game, so Seattle doesn't miss out on any home games.
Oh, thank God. That way I didn't have to listen to people cry. God, I'm so happy that it happened to be a road game. If it had been a home game, I honestly couldn't have handled the amount of crying.
Yeah.
Oh, they're taking away a home game. We got to travel all the way over there. Boo! Being a bunch of crybaby catfish. Like, that's every year when people whine about the London games. It drives me insane.
Now it's going to be a 9th home game because, we're going to have way more Seahawks fans.
More. Just judging by the reaction from all y'all over there in the UK when this was announced, the day it was announced, like how many messages, things on the Facebook page,
all over the place.
All over the place. I mean, the 12s over the across the pond, they are fired up, and this is cool for them.
In Seattle are fired up, already making travel plans.
We're making travel plans.
Yes,
I have never. The only other foreign country I've ever been to is Canada.
Yeah,
and I don't think that counts. Like, really, because it's basically so just more Montana,
right?
So I don't think that really counts. So I'm very excited to go to London, and
I think we're actually going to fly out of Canada.
Yes, and I think what I may have to do, because I don't know how long you want to stay. I may stay an extra week past you, so I can go around the rest of the Europe area.
Interesting. Okay,
check that out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't have that much time.
I know, and that's okay. And the other thing is, you don't know this, but I mentioned this to my daughter Isabel.
Yeah,
and wow, was she fired up! I've never been out of the country with you, Dad. Well, okay, because she's gone with her mom twice. And so she was very excited about this, and so I think I'm going to have to.
Trip.
Yeah,
has she been to a Seahawks game?
No.
Her first Seahawks game could be overseas?
Yes, in London.
Oh, man.
Yeah, at that brand new stadium that's yet to be built.
Yeah, that they don't even know if it's going to be finished.
That's the one thing that concerns me about this London game is the turf. I don't want to see some dude get injured because the soccer turf hasn't grown in completely or whatever.
They're supposed to use field turf.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
I heard Adam Nathans, because he's a big Spurs fan.
Yeah.
He was saying that they're going to do grass for the soccer, and they're doing field turf for these games.
Really? They're going to redo the entire playing surface just for these NFL games?
He probably has more specifics on exactly how they're doing it. If it's kind of a similar thing like they do in Arizona.
I need Bizarro Adam to get back to this on me. Yeah.
He'll have to. That's way more detail than I really wanted to get into.
Okay.
Was examining how they're going to do the.
Hey man, my inner groundskeeper was coming out. Like, I totally relate to Bill Murray's character in Groundhog's Day, like on a regular basis.
What?
Just my inner groundskeeper. I love it. Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
Oh, I'm sorry, Caddyshack.
Yeah, Caddyshack. There you go.
Dang, I was having
the same guy, 2 different movies.
Right. Yeah. Get my Bill Murray straight here.
Yeah. I like some Caddyshack.
But anyways, I am fired up for the London game. I'm fired up to go out there. I'm fired up to see all of the listeners out there. The offers of places to stay and just meetups and like all that, like off the charts. I'm super duper excited for this. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, we already got a place reserved. Colin Stringer
Yes.
Colin and Holly.
Yes.
Offered us up a place to stay. They're just a few minutes outside of London. So
it's funny too. He's like, well, our houses are a little smaller. I hope it's like, dude, I live in a small place. Like, I'm all about like the small, more minimalist thing. It's going to be amazing. I'm sure your house is 10 times nicer than mine. That I have no doubt.
And Colin emailed in. He says, Colin Stringer from the UK here. I know that London games are not particularly popular with some US fans. However, I think I speak for all UK Seahawkers when I say we would never want a Hawks game in London at the expense of a home game. I think Seattle are practically bulletproof in that respect, as they own and sell out their own stadium, unlike, to pick an example at random, some LA rent some fans.
Yeah?
Yeah. I hope, however, that you do not begrudge our excitement at getting a road game with a potential added bonus of Marshawn Lynch. Although hopefully not too much beast mode.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Marshawn comes back. He's under contract for another year.
I hadn't given that much thought.
Now,
but
John Gruden has said he's never actually even spoken with Marshawn Lynch.
Has anybody really ever spoken with Marshawn Lynch?
Well, Deion Sanders.
Okay, that's true. And Mike Robb. And that's probably it, right?
That's about it. I'm sure he doesn't even talk to his teammates.
Well, no. I don't think anybody knows what's going on up there.
But it's interesting now that Tom Cable is going back, how that Marshawn feels about that.
Interesting.
Because that could be a good thing.
Yeah. No, I haven't given this much thought. We got a whole offseason to digest that. Like that's an interesting topic for sure.
Colin goes on to say some fans will be concerned of the possible impact of travel distance and jet lag on the team. The plus side, however, is we should get a much better placed bye week, and playing the Raiders, the impact is pretty much the same for both teams. Others may be upset at losing a road game that is easily accessible from Seattle. I would think that the NFL would probably structure it so we get an East Coast away game in week 5. And then
you just bump out from there.
And then you just bump over to London right after that Sunday game.
That makes sense.
So thanks again to
the family Stringer, yes.
Yeah, the Stringer family.
Yes.
For looking out. And I know we probably have many other people that...
for sure.
I know there's a lot of people I'm looking forward to seeing John again. Hopefully Barry will stay home this time.
Yeah, I didn't know that I'd get the opportunity to meet...
So maybe Barry can come.
Oh, that's a good point.
I think Barry can come.
Okay. I didn't think I'd get an opportunity again this quickly to meet John after missing him this year. So that's super cool. And I'm definitely not scheduling any jobs. Like this is already X'd out on the calendar.
Okay.
Like it's happening.
Good.
Yeah.
We're doing it. All right. Well, before I want to get into some of the Pick'em League, but before we do, I need a couple teams to email in. So if your team name for the Pick'em League is See Me Hawks, Jimmy Groan, PBRU Serious, and Traffic Cone Nightmare.
That must be myself drunk driving test in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Traffic Cone Nightmare. I put out the cones. Yeah.
Email us your toxicity results. We want to We want to get you
in the proper level.
Proper bracket.
Yes.
Email gohawks@seahawkerspodcast.com. I need to hear from you. Now, getting into the Pick'em League, I want to congratulate Morley Gordon, the only person to get all 4 games correct this last week.
Wow.
So here I was all worried that we're just going to have so many ties. I wasn't even going to do prizes for the playoffs because it was going to be having to try and figure out, well, it would have been impossible to tie break. But last week we have only 2 people get all the games right. Yeah. This week only 1 dude gets all the games right. So
what are you sending as a thank you present to the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because they're the ones that are helping you in this endeavor.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
For Morley? Yeah. That I didn't get them all right. But.
No, I didn't either. But I did get the Jags game.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, good job.
Yeah.
Who are you picking this week? Who's your Super Bowl pick?
Oh, Tom Patriot. And then I think I'm going to go Vikings.
Yeah.
They just seem to have that the football gods are on their side vibe.
After that last week, right? That was
I think
incredible.
it's to make up for their previous season where the football gods hated the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and Blair Walsh missed it wide on an extra point distance.
Right. Yep, I think they end up with
previous extra point distance.
Yeah, I think they end up with a home Super Bowl and lose to the Gangas.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't make it all good.
Oh, come on, man. It's Tom Brady versus Case Keenum, Blake Bortles, and Nick Foles.
Yeah, it's probably going to be
I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Especially after the fire lit under the Patriots organization with the ESPN
Seth
article.
Liar-Sham's article.
Yeah.
That's what I'm calling him now, is Liar-Sham.
You know, I wouldn't...
Or Rumor-Sham.
What if...
Or you call it Early Report Sham.
What if Seth Wickersham is an agent of Bill Belichick?
Oh. Yeah, probably. He's a mole. This was an inside job.
I could see a lot of conspiracy theory coming out of this season because you have the Wickersham article, and now you have Tom Brady, all the reports about how his hand is all busted up.
Oh, really?
In practice. Oh, yeah. You haven't seen that?
No.
Oh, he got his hand hit in practice, and I guess even...
His throwing hand?
Yeah.
Hoyer the Destroyer was out there?
The Destroyer was out practicing the other day. This could all be a scheme just to drive down the point spread so Belichick can have, go on and lay a bet down.
Yeah.
Make even more money.
No, it's clear.
I think there's a lot of conspiracy here.
And Case Keenum obviously gave up his firstborn to the devil for this season.
Doesn't that mean he should go all the way?
Can I just say, though, like at the end of the Vikings game, when Keenum was out there to do the extra point, just take the knee, when he's out there doing the skull clap above his hand, and the whole stadium's going with him.
That was cool.
That was pretty cool. That's got to be a cool moment for him. Like Case Keenum. Like they're all revved up for him. What a moment for that guy.
That was pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
Well, speaking of people who are pretty cool, we got some new members of the flock.
All right. Okay, good. After what, 2 down weeks?
A few weeks, and we've had 3 in a row.
And now everybody's all right. Good. We broke the trend. We're good. We're going forward now with more flockers.
Got 3 new members of the flock. We have a one-time donation. We got a couple raises. Let's start with Jill Yamamoto. Welcome to the flock. $5 pledge, and for patches, bonus shows. Stickers.
Welcome, Jill. It's nice to have you as a member of the flock.
Welcome to the flock to Eric Trench in for the same patches, stickers.
I hope Eric Trench was an offensive lineman at some point, or a defensive lineman.
We're being in the trenches.
That's what I'm saying.
Or he's a ditch digger.
Well, I hope for his sake he's not.
No, that would be...
That's a tough job.
Right.
Unless you run an excavator instead of actually, like, digging with your hands.
That would be cool.
Yeah, running an excavator's fun.
Yeah, I know.
Well, at least in short periods of time. Maybe doing it for a living's not fun. I don't know.
I think the people who drive heavy machinery
enjoy
like driving heavy machinery.
Yeah, it's a good time.
You grow up as a kid and you just watch tractors and trucks all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
they put
you get
80% of their toys were Tonka trucks.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
I was like that as a kid.
Yeah. I feel strongly this was Eric's childhood. So thank you, Eric. We appreciate you. Welcome to the flock.
I want to know what you do.
Yeah. He's probably going to be like a web designer or something.
See, I was a roommate with a dude in the Navy. His last name was Sea Lover. So I knew that dude, like he was born to be in the Navy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, welcome to the flock to Kentaro Nishino, $3. And Ken sends in an email, says, thank you so much for an entertaining and informative podcast. I moved to the Seattle area about 1.5 years ago from Honolulu, Hawaii.
Oh, cool.
I didn't have the slightest clue about the Seahawks when I first came. I remember wondering what all the 12 signs around town meant.
Right. That would be confusing.
Right.
I could see that.
Well, I am now a huge Seahawks fan and proud to say I am a 12, in addition to now being a little flocker.
Yes.
Thanks for all you guys do. Go Hawks.
Yeah, go Hawks, man. And I don't know, that might have been a bad move going from Honolulu to Seattle.
I wouldn't want to be in Honolulu this past week, though.
No, I think that would have legitimately put me into a panic.
A missile threat coming into my state would have probably put me into a panic.
Yeah, I think that, well, maybe not panic, but I would have been on high freaking alert.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere to go on an island.
Especially when it's a test and it says, this is not a test in the freaking text.
Yes.
Like, that's...
Yeah.
Usually when it's a test,
right,
it'll say it's a test.
Exactly.
Instead of not.
Look, I got a message for Kim Jong-un, too, because I know he listens. But basically, the thing is, if you're going to nuke somewhere in the United States, just not Hawaii, okay? And there's only one reason why, because Hawaii is the only place I know of where there's literally no snakes. None. And I hate snakes. They freak me out. There's only one thing in the world that scares me just absolutely like beyond anything, and that's frickin' snakes. There are no snakes in Hawaii. That is my snake haven, and do not turn it into a glowing rock. Okay, like so. You know, if you really have to nuke somewhere, just not there, please.
Not Adam's snake haven,
right?
Well,
so Ken left the snake haven. He moved from somewhere with no snakes to where there are snakes.
Yeah, Washington doesn't really have any snakes that you have to worry about, though. And
you tell that to anybody out on the east side of the state.
I was about to clarify Western Washington.
Okay.
Eastern Washington has.
There's not like pythons like getting ready to jump out of the sound.
All the Eastern
and eat
Washington rest stops have the snake warnings.
Yeah, I know. Those are terrifying. That's why I don't stop there. Every time we stop there, you get out of the car. You notice I never get out of the car there?
That's why.
There you go.
Well, also, thank you to David Schwartz. Sent us in a one-time $40 donation. Says,
so we have the power of the Schwartz?
We have the power of the Schwartz.
All right. Thanks, David.
Love the pod. Go Hawks from Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh, very cool, man. Appreciate that a ton.
And then we got a couple of raises. Christian Jessam in up to 1212.
Oh, all right.
And Mark Martella from Kirrup, Western Australia, moved up to 25.
Holy crap, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's probably wondering where his mini helmet is in the mail.
We're working on it, but you'll get it because that's amazing, man.
Mark explains, he said, just put through a raise from the $12 a month to the Better at Life level. You guys have been putting a great amount of effort in, and the shows are great. Can't be easy coming up with all the stuff in the off season to make the transition a little easier. Let me throw you an extra dinero. Keep up the great effort from Mark in Kirrup.
Mark, Australia. You are Better at Life, man. Like, thank you very much. That's a huge deal for us. It does help to continue through the off season for Brandan to come back from the dead. He basically was Lazarus this week. Came back from the dead just to do a show.
Well, as we've mentioned in the past, we also take payment in the form of really nice notes. And Dan in Swindon, England sent one along. He is at Dan_the_Ginge on Twitter. Dan says, firstly, a pre-note. I only found out about this podcast a couple of months ago. I decided to listen to some better times and started listening from week 1 of the season. So I am a little behind. He says, I just want to say a big thank you. Being from the UK means that a lot of Seahawks games are very rarely at a suitable time for me to watch all the way through. So your past and future insights into games are very valuable to me. Unfortunately, I cannot be a member of the flock being a poor student. I don't know if it's the same in the USA, but in the UK, a good majority of their university have very little money. So I sincerely hope a heartfelt thank you is just as good. Cannot wait for the Hawks to come to London this year. Go Hawks.
Wait a second. I've always been told that over in socialist Europe, like everybody gets everything for free and they're fine. Yeah, I mean, you're basically like a bunch of commies.
Ruining this vision that we're being told.
The narrative, yes, absolutely. So I don't know.
Healthcare, free school.
Yeah, take some of that free government money that they drop out of planes on everybody's heads over there and send it in the show, man. I don't want to hear the excuse that you're too poor in college. Except for that makes total sense, man. And appreciate the nice note. And I'm glad you're fired up. Maybe we get to, when we have a listener meetup, because we're going to have a couple.
Yeah.
When we're out there in London. You got to show up, dude.
Definitely.
Yeah. They got to have free public transportation.
Do they?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But
you can just steal a car because their cops don't have guns.
That's right.
You don't have to worry about nothing.
Or a bicycle.
Yeah, I can take a beating from a nightstick. Who cares? Like, that's basically, yeah. That's basically a green light to do anything. The way their cops don't carry guns.
Yeah, when you have to worry about getting shot here.
And like they're heavy, their SWAT just brings in a taser.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your worst thing you have to worry about is pissing yourself.
This is going to be a really fun trip.
It's going to be awesome. I'm gonna plan a bank heist, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
You're going that far?
Yeah. Might as well.
I think that could lead to more than a beating by a nightstick. That could actually lead to jail time, too.
They got to catch me first.
One more email before we get into Do Better and Better Live. Jeremy in Vancouver sent a couple questions that I just missed last show. But now that coordinators have been hired, I think that question was settled. So I'll get into his email here. It says, guys, I have a couple questions that I've been pondering now that my weekly Seahawks ingestion is down to browsing the web and avoiding clickbait. One, how likely? I'm going to bring back our clickbait segment for this offseason, but I'm going to do it with a twist.
Ooh.
I think we're going to do it a little bit different this year. I think I'm hoping it will be fun.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
All right.
I've been following it, and
you got an idea.
I got some ideas.
Okay.
All right. Jeremy's question is, how likely do you think it is that we trade players like Jeremy Lane, Michael Bennett, or Richard Sherman for draft compensation? Out of those, who would you trade? Thanks for the great content. Go Hawks from Jeremy.
So it was Sherman, Lane, or
Bennett.
You
could even throw Earl in there because, I'm going to keep Earl because it was KJ, Bobby, and Earl were the three guys that Pete said building the defense around.
Correct. Yeah, no, Earl's not going nowhere.
So, yeah, let's probably
even though
sense.
People are trying to make it sound like he's not excited about being back and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of garbage.
Well, you could even technically throw in Averill and Chancellor since they are under contract. I think they would be tradable.
Yeah, your trade. It's like saying my used car has trade-in value when it's been crushed at the junkyard. Like it's over. Like it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's broken. Yes, I can't wait to get full trade-in value for my car with a blown up motor.
I would hope that they're able to come back, but I don't know.
I wouldn't throw them in there.
Okay.
I guess at the end of the day, I think probably Bennett would be the one.
Yeah. I think out of the three, he would have the most trade value in terms of ability.
Yeah, in ability. But there's a lot of teams that wouldn't take him for the media headache.
Well, just look at none of the teams that would take Kaepernick.
Right. And then on top of that, Jeremy Lane has zero trade value.
Yeah, I don't think
he failed a physical in Houston.
Probably don't even
failed logic. Yeah.
Then this actually
getting ripped and driving.
This came in before his arrest, so. We'll give Jeremy some credit there.
Probably Bennett, but I still don't think you do that. He's a bargain. He's a bargain at the price that you have him for now. He fits the locker room. The rest of his teammates love him. You're fine. You don't need to get rid of him. I don't see them trading any of those guys. Now, as far as trading Sherman, it's probably what you'd probably get the most for him.
With all the news last year, you maybe have an idea of what his market is from other teams of what they may have offered.
Right.
Just based on how much that was in the news last year.
That's before blowing Achilles.
Right. And that's why.
But see, now you'd be selling when the stock is at its lowest.
And he also has a $13 million contract for next year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be hard to
trade.
I mean, you might get a mid-round pick because that's a lot of.
And would you do that? I wouldn't.
I wouldn't do it for a.
No, thank you.
Fourth.
I'll take another year of Sherm.
Yeah,
coming off injury. Sorry, rather than some mid-round pick. No, that's a no-brainer. I don't think they trade any of those dudes.
If I had to pick one, though, that they would, Bennett would be the most likely of the three.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, more of that to come in the offseason as we talk about players for next year and some of the free agents coming up. But let's close out this show. Let's do some do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better this week is for the start of the frickin' mock draft season.
Oh, it is mock draft season.
Oh, my God. In the headlines that come with these mock drafts. Giants take quarterback number 1 after huge shakeup with trade with the Bears or some crap like that. Surprise trade. Like the guy who writes the article, you surprised yourself. You were like going along and you're like getting ready to draft for the Jets and they somehow traded with the Bears. It has surprised you. The whole exercise is so freaking stupid and it's here. It's upon us. I've had to been reading it for the last 2 weeks now that the Seahawks season is now officially over. So to anybody who does a mock draft and writes stupid crap headlines like that, do better.
The mock drafts, I'm not so.
You can't surprise yourself.
That's ridiculous. The one thing that I do like about mock drafts is getting to know some of the potential players that would be maybe available in that part of the draft.
Yeah, you get to understand their draft value in a sense, right?
But
not where they're going to go.
But when I see the headlines of this player, like the Seahawks drafted this dude.
No, that didn't happen, actually.
If you're going to do that, you have to do mock draft and then a little colon.
Right.
Like to start off the headline.
Correct.
To make sure you tag it
right
as a mock draft first.
You don't even need to put draft after mock. You can just put mock because this is basically like you're mocking the entire system.
Sure.
Yeah. Like you're mocking the actual draft by putting out your mock draft. It's so dumb. Yeah. Why don't they just call it pretend draft instead of mock draft? Pretend draft. Fantasy draft.
Mock is definitely the shortest.
It's also the dumbest.
The best.
Ugh. I hate mock draft season, dude. And here we are.
Well, on to my do better.
Okay. Did you surprise yourself with your do better?
Well, it was a surprising thing at the end of the Saints and Minnesota game. Not in the sense that I guess we've seen it before. We've seen walk-off games. We did the successful Mary game where the Seahawks won with the Golden Tate touchdown. Mm-hmm. That was a walk-off. We saw the team have to do the extra point after. I like the idea of kneeling at the end, but
that was a bad beat for some gamblers, though.
That's dumb. I don't care about that.
Oh, that's pretty.
The stupidest thing that came out of that game was the video from gamblers inside of a casino.
Oh, I didn't see this.
They were essentially cheering on a kneel.
Yeah.
They were like, kneel, kneel, kneel. And then there were probably some other people who were upset that they didn't run it. But
right.
That's it's really weird. That's totally different. It's like fantasy football. It's just a very different part of the game.
It is.
That it's But my do better this week is for the NFL Rules Committee, because we've seen in the past their ability to shift and change rules, even going into the playoffs.
Correct.
And they knew that this has come up in the past where teams have won with walk-off touchdowns. And the idea of trotting out a team, especially after a bad beat.
Poor like Saints.
That,
yeah.
The Saints having to come out and take the field as they
had so much disdain for it, they sent their punter out.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that too. But Case Keenum, leading the chant, like that just had to be very demoralizing for those Saints players.
Sure.
And credit to them for making it out. But for the rules committee not having the foresight to implement a rule, because there's no reason to even do that at the end of the game. They just won.
Except for gambling.
If you're up, and teams are starting to take a knee, so now it doesn't even matter to that extent.
Correct.
So if you're up, and one of the listeners pointed this out to me, if you're up by 3 or more points at the end of the game, because you could botch a 2-point conversion, and they could take a 2-point conversion back for a score.
Right.
So that could tie it up.
On a walk-off type score?
Yeah.
If you're up more than 3.
If on a walk-off score, if you're up more than 3, let the coach say, I declare this at the end of the game.
I decline doing the extra point.
Right. Or even allow the opposing coach, if he walks off the field, that's like in chess when you tip over your king and essentially forfeit the game.
Right.
Well, let an opposing coach, if he walks off the field, then it's over. Point.
Or if there's more than 5 reporters on the field, then it's just done.
Yeah.
Because,
It was ridiculous seeing the whole thing just to try and get everyone back on the field just so they could take a knee at the end. NFL rules, they needed to figure this out before that happened, and hopefully it's something they address in the offseason. If they don't, do better.
Do better for sure, man. It is ridiculous. And like just the idea that the refs have to go out there and be like, all right, no, we're really doing this.
Yeah, because we have to. It's part of the rules.
Right. Like maybe
and why do you need opposing players on the other side for a snap?
Correct. Yeah.
They have to happen.
They don't. I don't think there's a penalty for having too few men on the field.
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah, they shouldn't have to come out at all.
I don't think they had 11 guys on the field.
No, I think it looked like it was like 6 or 7 dudes that went out. I'm sorry one of those teams had to lose, to be honest.
Yeah, I am too. And
I feel bad for Drew Brees. He balled out.
I know. After being down.
Yeah.
17-0.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have felt bad. I would have really felt bad for Vikings fans, though, considering their history.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't need more of that.
I'm rooting for the Vikings to win the Super Bowl at this point. They're my adopted team and like when I say adopted team, like they have 1/1,000,000th of my fandom compared to the Seahawks.
I just want to thank the NFC for getting rid of all the teams that I couldn't root for.
Correct.
Like I could still root for Philly if they make it.
I'm certainly rooting against Tom Brady. I know that much.
He doesn't need any more chips.
He got too many chips. And I don't want to hear if he wins another freaking Super Bowl, all I'm going to hear about is all this TB12 crap, like that he's found the Holy Grail.
Oh, my gosh.
And I can't do it. The rumor is him and Giselle are going to start a fitness network in 20 years when he retires.
Because he's not retiring for 20 years?
Probably not if he's found the Holy Grail. And he's still winning Super Bowls. There's something unholy about this.
Yeah. Something needs to... Yeah,
there was a deal with the devil made.
Investigative reporting into that?
Right. Exactly. There had to have been a seance somewhere. Like there was something. There was a live human sacrifice. There had to have been.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick may be missing toes. He may have cut off toes in the deal with the devil. I don't know.
This is the more interesting article than what Wickersham put together.
And it's just as credible. That's a
crazy thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, on to Better at Life.
All right, man. My Better at Life this week will be short and sweet. My Better at Life this week is for Cliff Averill. And some reports come out this week that he definitely plans to make an attempt to come back. Like he's going to go for it. He's going to try. And he may not know till about April, which might be too long for the Seahawks staff to wait anyways, but he isn't giving up. He has a vision of trying to play again. And I think that takes a lot of courage after having a scary thing like that happen to you.
Sure.
A spinal injury in that manner. And to have the will to not go out like that, be like, no, that's not how I go out. I go out on my terms. And to go after it and make a push to try to make it happen, I think that takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of will, takes a lot of strength. And for that, Cliff Averill is better at life than Skip Bayless.
I hope he does it. I would love it if he came back and was the same dude with the Seahawks. You know how much of a Cliff Averill fan I am.
I know you love the housing commissioner.
Your Better at Life this week.
Thank you.
I like that.
All right.
My Better at Life this week.
I hope I can get on board with yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
My Better at Life is for Vikings fans. And the act of sportsmanship by Thomas Morstead, the punter who came out on the field for the Saints for that final play. You referenced that.
Yeah.
Not only did he make it back on the field, but Morstead was injured on the Saints' first punt because when he made the tackle on Marcus Sherrills.
Really?
Yeah, he got hurt. His quote to reporters at the end of the game, he said, "The whole first half was a grind. I couldn't breathe and was just panting, short, shallow breaths the whole first half. I sounded like a dying dog." And when Vikings fans saw this, and they saw that, he came out on the field for the last play of the game, Vikings fans, based off a Reddit post, came together and donated more than $100,000 to Morstead's What You Give Will Grow Foundation.
Wow.
So just for that, and for the fans that, in small donations, just similar to how Bills fans were donating to
Andy Dalton's
deal. Yeah. So this is a cool trend. I really like that.
I like this too.
This is like the maybe third or fourth story since the Andy Dalton one came out, where fans are doing this. And it's just a really cool trend. I appreciate the Morstead came out. He pledged to donate 100% of the funds that Vikings fans turned in, that he would then donate to the Child Life Department of the Children's Hospital in Minnesota.
Freaking cool, man. No, I think this is
so much cool stuff.
Yeah, these are the types of things that speak to the best about us as not just as a fan base, or even NFL fans, but just as a nation. That's what I think those are the qualities that we should be looking to hold up as the best of our ideals. And so I endorse your Better at Life this week, Brandon.
Two highly endorsed Better at Life this week.
Yes. Yeah. I'd reach over and pat you on the back, but you're still sick probably.
We'll just have to air high five like we normally do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.